There are three more reasons to want to value the environment. This is a picture of the Deepwater Horizon just after it exploded. Lots of oil was spilled, lots of birds and fish were killed. And the reason some people say that this happened was because British Petroleum was essentially saving money on health and safety, and that kept up their profitability while they were making fairly questionable investments. And if profit was the motive here, then presumably you could have persuaded British Petroleum not to do this, to keep their health and safety record up to scratch by paying them money. And the question is, of course, would you be willing to pay £1 or £5 or £50 towards this aim? Now, £50 would not convince British Petroleum to change its behavior, but of course, if lots of people are prepared to pay £50, then it just might. And the question here really is, how are you going to stop me? How are you going to prevent damage to the environment? And there's two ways of doing that. One is after the fact, the threat of litigation, that people are forced to pay fines and damages because it violates some sort of law. And the other is before the fact. Now I'm going to talk about both a little bit more. So in litigation, the court often imposes fines if somebody broke the law, and it often awards damages to the victims of that illegal behavior. This is another oil spill a little bit earlier. This is the oil spill of the Exxon Valdez in 1989. It was then the largest oil spill ever. They did an enormous amount of damage in Alaska and other places nearby. And this actually spurred a large number of lawsuits against Exxon, at that time ExxonMobil now, where people sought compensation. And that was not just the use values. A lot of fishermen sued Exxon because they essentially lost their livelihood. They could not fish because there was oil on the water first, and because a lot of fish had been killed later. Not only the use values, but also the state of Alaska litigated on behalf of environmental damage, damage to the natural beauty of Alaska. Now, Richard Carson and colleagues estimated the total value of that somewhere between 3 and 9 billion. So this is one application of environmental valuation studies. It informs the courts on how much damages to award. You can also do it before the fact. If you can demonstrate the total economic value, and if you find that it's greater than its alternative, then you can actually start to wonder, can we not just prevent environmental damages by somehow capturing this total economic value and perhaps compensate the people who would be doing damage to the environment but might be persuaded not to. And this could be called, or is often called, payment for environmental services. And that might just save the rainforest. And essentially the idea here is that the holder of the property rights, somebody who has the right to destroy the rainforest, might be persuaded not to exercise that right in return for a certain compensation, a certain sum of money. This could be internalizing externality. Money would typically flow towards a farmer or a landowner, and you can also see this as a coercion bargain. We'll talk about coercion later on. And this is not uncommon, this is not unheard of. You see here an example from The Guardian where actually governments and film stars got together, raised a lot of money, well, 75 million, and paid Ecuador to essentially not drill for oil. It has a number of advantages. It leaves the trees intact and therefore stores CO2. So it helps against climate change. Rainforest is good for biodiversity, and also it protects watershed by regulating the water flow down the hill. And this works in certain circumstances. There's actually many more than just this example from Ecuador, and I'll talk about a few of those later. And of course, the crucial input to an analysis like this is how much are people willing to pay? How much are we actually prepared to pay to protect the environment and buy out potential polluters? This is a dangerous tactic, right? Unscrupulous potential polluters may actually use this to extort money, but if that's the price we pay for protecting the environment, then so be it. The final use of environmental valuation, I'm going to talk about again later, is to compare the value of the services that the environment delivers to the rest of the economy, to somehow bring environmental goods and services into the national accounts. And if you do that, you actually get people to sit up and pay attention. One of the problems with the conventional measure of economic output, the gross domestic product, is that it completely ignores the environment, but of course GDP plays a big role in the public debate, in the political debate, and if you can extend gross domestic product to include environmental goods and services, then people may pay more attention to the environment. And we're going to talk about it extensively later.